Je le dis, donc, un des grands atouts de cette initiative européenne engagée, c'est de promouvoir des politiques de soins plus importantes, plus concertées, plus vastes en matière de cancérologie, mais aussi de porter, et c'est un aspect très important, une signature de ces initiatives-là, une dynamique de recherche forte. Ces dynamiques de recherche, elles sont nombreuses aujourd'hui en cancérologie. Elles franchissent volontiers les frontières des États, des réseaux internationaux se créent beaucoup. C'est aussi aujourd'hui de plus en plus une recherche intégrative. Le cancer a été un modèle de recherche intégrative. Sauf qu'aujourd'hui, cette recherche intégrative doit intégrer des paramètres de plus en plus nombreux, des champs d'expertise de plus en plus nombreux, et ça rend justement à la fois cette recherche intégrative plus difficile à mener, plus difficile à implémenter sur le terrain, et aussi c'est une recherche qui doit être de plus en plus multicentrique, avec de plus en plus de centres, avec de plus en plus de cohortes qui doivent aller se chercher dans différents pays. Et là aussi, la dimension multicentrique de cette recherche est difficile à mettre en œuvre. Ce sont des aspects sur lesquels l'Europe et la politique européenne peut apporter beaucoup. On va en parler avec nos invités qui vont nous rejoindre. Joanna DRAKE est avec nous, Elisabete WEIDERPASS est avec nous, Marek SVOBODA est avec nous, et nous avons en duplex normalement Claire GIRY et Madeleine DURBEEJ-HJALT qui sont avec nous. Sous vos applaudissements. Alors, je vous présente rapidement Joanna DRAKE qui était avec nous hier, directrice générale adjointe à la direction générale de la recherche et de l'innovation de la Commission européenne. Oui. Nous avons Elisabete WEIDERPASS, directrice du Centre international de recherche sur le cancer, bien connu de Lyon, qui est donc l'organisme dédié au cancer de l'OMS. Avec nous, Marek SVOBODA, qui a été un peu présenté tout à l'heure, directeur de l'Institut général du cancer Masaryk Memorial en République tchèque, et qui est un des grands promoteurs de la politique en matière de cancer dans le pays. Avec nous aussi en ligne, si on les a, alors je ne vois pas sur les écrans. Nous avons avec nous Madeleine. Bonjour Madeleine. Hello, with the Swedish flag from DURBEEJ-HJALT. Vous êtes directrice générale du Conseil de la recherche suédois, secrétaire général pour la médecine et la santé. Le Conseil de la recherche suédois est un conseil qui fixe les grandes priorités d'action en matière de recherche au niveau de la Suède. Vous êtes vous-même chercheuse, pas en matière de cancer, mais plutôt sur des muscular dystrophies. Vous avez beaucoup travaillé là-dessus et mené des travaux remarquables. Et normalement, nous avons aussi Claire GIRY qui est avec nous, directrice générale de la recherche et de l'innovation au ministère de la recherche, de l'enseignement supérieur et de l'innovation. I would like to start with you, Joanna, and like we did in the previous roundtable, try to maybe, before go to the theme of the proposal of the morning, try to have an overview about what shall be the real inputs of the current European initiative. Was mainly the plan this in the first roundtable, is going to be mainly the mission on this roundtable. The mission created is a huge new thing coming on cancer research, yet one could say, well, there was Horizon Europe, there was EU for Health, and both were financing cancer research projects. So what's so new, and what are the new challenges in field of research in cancer that needs such a dedicated place like a mission like this? With the mic.
Thank you very much for that question. Well, I think the whole concept of the mission is new. So let's start from there. But of course, within it are the elements that you are looking for. And what you're looking for is that the approach towards identifying the global challenges and therefore how to tackle them through research and through innovation, but with an emphasis on bringing about the societal transformations, the societal changes, and also the impact that we need to see more. But of course, you might say, but aren't we tackling all challenges like this? Yes, it's true. But as European institutions, we had to work together with the member states, together with the citizens, together with the stakeholders, in order to bring about this value, this added value. And the added value lies in the fact that, first of all, we had to find something that, a goal, first of all, which is measurable, and which one state or region, no matter the financial research, innovation, resources, and capacity cannot reach by itself. So this is the goal. This is why we have set 3 million lives to be improved by 2030. The emphasis, what are we tackling? We are tackling what we think we could do better together. The understanding of cancer, the prevention, the diagnosis, the treatment, the type of care, the inequalities, and maybe also the data. And therefore the digital part is really an important, is really important. Why? Because as I said yesterday, there's a lot of obstacles that come in the way, not to allow us, even between researchers, between the people who have been treating cancer and researching it all their lives and over centuries, but not really having had a picture which could actually help the knowledge inform the policymakers better. So in this way, if you look even at the way that we are encouraging that the different instruments, different funds, even from within the European Union, but also together with the programs that the member states might have in their respective budgets, in their respective priorities, financial priorities at the national level, we are saying that there should be synergies between this. And therefore, this would call also, by nature, by definition rather, a combined governance, doing it together. Now, of course, the challenge is in the how and the when this is going to be seen to be done. And this is exactly what we are facing right now in the implementation itself.
It means that your DG research and you're going to knock at the door of the other DGs saying, do you have something on cancer and research we can try to make together? This is going to be tricky.
I can assure you we're doing it right now. And I am one of the persons within my own DG which is responsible for this. So I can assure you it is happening. It is not an easy subject. Because by nature, let's face it, I mean, this is how the whole structures have been built over the years, and this is natural. It's nothing to be ashamed of, that everybody have their own budget and they look after it and they make sure they spend it. But not necessarily to create hooks with other ministries or with other DGs in our case, to actually create hooks and interlinkages in the calls for proposals and the applications. And this is exactly how we are working right now. It is not easy, because sometimes you feel you are, you know, like Sisyphus trying to put that rock up that mountain. But it does happen. And I think it takes 1 or 2 or 3 good examples to be followed, which will then become the culture. So this is also happening. The other important novelty, I think, is the citizens' engagement. And I think this is really important as well, because, and we have to be careful what we mean by engagement. It does engagement. I had an interesting discussion yesterday with Claire. I think she's here with, not Claire. Yeah, that's it. And we're saying, but what does it mean to engage? And engage doesn't mean just consultation. I think engagement means really something ongoing, really, you know, an idea of having the citizens actually being part of the policy formulation and the policy influence and the methodology influence. And also, I mean, if we look at the digital side, which I said is also the other novelty, how we're going to use digital tools to give us a better picture. You know, patients need to be also proactive, for instance, in, you know, the digital register for cancer patients, to actually put their data there and to want to share it also with other professionals and with other parts of Europe. So I think all of this, plus the fact that even internally, and yesterday John and I were talking about how the Europe Beating Cancer Plan and the mission were actually conceived and created together with a symbiotic relationship. So from the mission side, we shall inform the policymakers with evidence, with knowledge, with competencies. And of course, from the policymaking side, they will inform us with, you know, what's the best policy ways or what are the options going forward. And I think this is also a good way of doing it. Again, it has not been charted territory, it is uncharted, but I think it is about time that we actually find a better way.
It means that it has to be moved on both sides. One side is the ones who give the money, who wants to promote the research. the other side are the researchers themselves also, and that was a question said this morning. They also have to make their move to have a larger view of the research subjects they want to address. That is not just the subject of cancer, but cancer and other issues engage. They also have to enlarge the spectrum of what they want to do. Is this something that you can address them? It's part of their responsibilities also.
Absolutely, and I said this yesterday as well, and I repeat the message as well vis-à-vis not only the researchers, by the way, who needs to be not only the ones who are proposing which are the subject, but also by listening from the policymakers, from the patients, from the stakeholders, from the administrators, who are actually doing the actual treatment and, who are actually taking certain decisions on the governance side, for instance, to listen to them as well and to see, what would be also wise and urgent, to research. But my message would also be the proactive part should also be very much from the member states and from the governments, from the different authorities, not only at the national level or federal level, but also at the regional and local, because this is a very local thing. It could be a very local thing. So I would say my appeal would be the proactivity needs to be also very much us working together, us being the EU institutions, all of us with the member states at linked up at different levels, and not only at the top level, very much bottom up.
Elisabete, I would like to have your vision regard on this mission initiatives. You've been following cancer policies and cancer policies in research for long years, so you are a good observer of these policies. What's new, what's promising for you in that mission that was not existing previously?
It's a new concept.
It shall be working usually. Try it again.
Okay,
it doesn't sound to be working so much actually. Yes. Est-ce qu'on pourrait avoir un autre, voilà, où on a un micro qui va pas bien, donc.
So the mission is a new concept altogether.
Ouais.
It's not only research, it's not only implementation, it's not only contact with civil society and patient organizations, it's all combined. And really the aim is to save lives or to protect lives and to improve the quality overall of the cancer, let's call it the cancer situation in Europe within a time limited of 7 years, which is the mandate that the mission has, and within a scope very concrete. So I think I'm here not alone, thankfully. I'm really surrounded by people that worked in the mission. I have Professor Recherche, I have a Professor Chomieni, I have a Professor Ruth on pediatrics, and I have my colleagues from the committee. We worked daily for 2 years to conceptualize this. And actually, it removed us from the board, from our comfort zone. Most of us were scientists working in our labs, on your research centers, and we really needed to go beyond that and say what will change the incidence and mortality curve within a certain time frame. So it's really, I think, a totally new concept for us in Europe, how it works.
The research needs to enlarge its vision to address new subjects, more subjects to implement. We'll speak about this. It needs also to address more actors, and actors, state members actors, not just for always the same to do the research. Is it also a goal, and is it, how can this research program as a mission can also try to fight against this different, not well-balanced and unequal approach, beneficial approach of research?
Yeah, the mission is broad. So when we conceptualized the European Cancer Mission, we thought it as a house with a very solid foundation, which is understanding better the determinants of cancer, the causes of cancer, the mechanisms of cancer, and how from prevent to diagnose to treat to support survivors and so on and so forth. And then we idealized the pillars of the mission, which would be prevent what's preventable, diagnose early and provide adequate treatment, and then survivorship. And all of this under an equality roof, or a decrease in inequalities concept. And in all these pillars, and in the fundament, and in the inequalities, the involvement of civil society and patient organizations is absolutely fundamental. So our conclusion was it would make no sense to propose another research program within the European Union unless patients and civil society would be with us from day zero, integrating and incorporating their ideas and suggestions in the whole mission.
Je voudrais prolonger ce qu'on dit en donnant écho aussi à ce qu'ont été les propositions de ce matin. Et en matière de recherche, elles ont soulevé de plusieurs aspects qui sont vraiment très importants, notamment la voie d'une recherche plus multidisciplinaire et plus intégrative. Le cancer est souvent vu comme une recherche intégrative qui apporte des avancées au plus près des patients, et on voit que l'évolution de la maladie, avec les inégalités de plus en plus fortes, avec des défis de plus en plus nombreux à adresser, des changements de comportement, des screenings moléculaires, rend de plus en plus difficile cette dimension intégrative aujourd'hui. Plusieurs propositions du groupe essayaient justement de donner de nouveaux horizons à la recherche en matière de cancérologie. Évidemment, ça a été le cas dans le retour au travail avec Angelique, qui a dit l'importance de porter la recherche, notamment en sciences sociales, sur la vie avec et après le cancer. Ça a été le cas aussi avec les high-risk high-gain, dans l'idée sur le fondamental de sortir un peu de la preuve de concept pour essayer d'ouvrir le champ aussi de recherche beaucoup plus ouverte et peut-être là aussi plus multidisciplinaire en matière de risques un peu de mauvais pronostics. Elisabete, implementation is, I would say, the common thing in between all this. You promoted a lot through the ARC. How such an implementation issue means reloading the research approach and the research program ongoing. How can implementation be more present from conception to evaluation?
So implementation and implementation research is not something new, but is something that us, within the mission board and within the colleagues working in the commission, we decided to give a new light and to demonstrate and to put in written, in black and white, how important we think this is. So let's give a very concrete example. Tobacco. We have known of the malefices of tobacco for over 70 years. We are still struggling with decreasing tobacco consumption in the population. Human papillomavirus. We have in this room today one of the biggest human papillomavirus researchers of our generation, Dr. Dione there. We discovered the vaccine already a decade ago. And if you look at the rates of vaccination against human papillomavirus here in France, it's very low. It's, I would say, shamefully low. So we need to decrease the time between the scientific discovery, the industrial valorization and development of products, and then implementation on the ground. For COVID, the humanity and Europe play a very important role, managed to do this extremely fast. So we need to bring these innovations and implement them faster and faster for the benefit of population and patients. So implementation research as a concept has a tremendous role to play. So how we do faster, how we reach populations faster to implement what we already know, and we know a lot. Because when we say and we publish that we can prevent something between 30 and 50% of all cancers today, it's true. So why we are not doing it? We are not implementing on the ground enough what we already know. So we need to do that and then to discover the causes of cancer and how to detect it early and how to treat well and also implement it much, much faster as we did in the case of COVID.
There's one thing that is quite viewed now on as a possible magic wand to this implementation issue. It's the comprehensive center, because there will be the place for researcher and there will be the place for doctors, both coming just near the patient to bring to the patient the best of research and translated in the best of care. This is a great idea, and as many great ideas, implementation is a great question to it, actually. How is it going to be done on the ground? What shall be the key of success for this comprehensive center to be plainly integrative center between research and health? This is for you, Joanna.
Well,
with the mic, always.
I can start with what has been established as a milestone in the implementation plan. The implementation plan says that, and both of the mission and the European Beating Cancer, and I quote, that 90% of eligible cancer patients have access to comprehensive cancer infrastructures by 2030 throughout Europe. So that's quite high. We're talking about 90% by 2030. I mean, it's already like in 8 years. And maybe if you're wondering what the comprehensive cancer infrastructures are, again, there's a definition which is very holistic. It says national or regional infrastructures that provide resources and services to support, improve, and integrate cancer care, research, training of care professionals, and education for cancer patients, survivors, and families carers. So very broad, as you could see. But I think what is really the key, I would say, defining profile of this is that we're emphasizing high-quality care and trying to reach that high-quality care. Again, we are not saying that there is no high-quality care. This is not what we are saying, and that only we have the answer. What we are saying is that we shall strive to have at least a minimum of what we consider to be high quality everywhere. Why? Because inequalities, as Elisabete was saying as well, is still very much part and parcel, unfortunately, of the profile of cancer, cancer care, access to care, access to preventive treatment, to screening, to diagnosis, to knowledge, whatever. So these inequalities, I don't think are acceptable anymore. I don't think we should accept them. And I think we should, as Europeans, want to make it our own mission that we use our resources to the best and stretch them to the extent that they are actually, easily accessible across the board. At least, within a certain ceiling. Then, of course, there's always room for more specialized, more care, more cure. But we have to have at least access to this. Now, again, I say 90%, how are we going to make it? Well, again, the first step would be a capacity building program with the member states and with the support of the member states and also the associated countries in improving or even creating, in some cases, a comprehensive cancer infrastructure. And I have to say that in some member states, this has already started. They are using, as I think also John was mentioning earlier, part of their Resilience and Recovery Fund, for instance, which is the fund that the EU created, when COVID hit, and of course the economies went berserk, for all member states. And as you know, there was a big pot of money, the greatest ever, including money from the market, again, a blending effort, EU money with money from the market, borrowed by the EU in order to help the member states leverage back and bouncing back better. Part of that bouncing back better formula, some member states used it also for this, meaning that they also had already identified, and I have to say, sometimes also with the help of the EU Commission, suggesting to the member states in what is called, we have many funny names within the EU for very good exercises, by the way, but when the people out there know the labels, they say, what are they talking about? But for instance, there are a couple of exercises. One is called the European Semester, and the other one is called country-specific recommendations, where the Commission, together with the member states, in constant dialogue with the member states, actually suggests that money is spent for these important priorities. Some member states take it up, others maybe decide to take other priorities up, it's up to them. But, it's good to know that this is also happening. Some member states do recognize that when it comes to cancer, especially if we have the evidence that there are gaps to be filled and we present it to them, they actually take the suggestion. So, as I say, we are working together with the policymakers, with the EU Beating Cancer Plan, with our colleagues from the Health Department, and we are making sure that through an integrated approach this is happening. So again, it's a question of putting research together with policy making and bringing them closer together. What is good to mention is what I mentioned also yesterday, and this is the subgroup, this famous subgroup which we have set up under the Cancer Mission, where we are bringing systematically the research people within the governments and also the health people together all the time. And this doesn't actually happen usually. And I'm glad to say yesterday my colleagues were telling me that it's actually being noticed by the other missions. There are 4 other missions, ocean, soil, we mentioned them yesterday, where they're seeing that this actually works when you build up these synergies, at all levels, and keeping the citizens' engagement, making it real all the time, and then translating it into actual programs. And this is happening already now in the cancer
and this is happening in Czech Republic, because Czech Republic is one of the example of the European countries that use this recovery fund to finance important new institution on research. There's a national institution for prevention that is going to be created in the second city of Czech, which is I don't know how to spell it, so I'm saying this is, what's the name of the city? It's Brno. And there's also a National Institute of Research that's going to be created, and you have this comprehensive center existing. It's around 15 of them are existing. Marek, you can take the mic because this question is for you. How such comprehensive center can help countries like you, which I call maybe the smaller countries, to have a better access to high quality research, and also maybe to have a more implemented research more implemented research.
Yeah, thank you. At the beginning, maybe I have to mention that that's really true, and that the European Commission actually gave a Czech Republic as an example of good practice regarding the investment to oncology from the Recovery and Resiliency Fund. The Czech government decided, and it was also because of the COVID crisis and the impact on the human health and on the screening programs, to invest really huge amount of the money from the National Recovery Plan to cancer. For your imagination, it's about 4,080 million euros, which will be invested to the oncology. Which of 340 million will be invested in the strengthening the cancer care. About 40 million euros will be invested to cancer prevention. For example, our institute will build a completely new cancer prevention center, and 60 million euros will be invested to the National Institute for Cancer Research. And that's the connection to your question. We decided to build this institute with main goal of connecting all of the research institution, the high quality research institution in the Czech Republic, to be able to solve the most complex task mostly in the translation research agenda. And actually, to some comment on the network and on the comprehensive cancer network, yeah, the Czech Republic already has, it was established in 2006, the network of comprehensive cancer centers, and which are accredited in the national process, and some of them are also accredited by the OECI. And I really think that it's very important for each member state country to have at least one comprehensive cancer center, or of course even more if it's a country with
which means that it would need a ratio, kind of a ratio of one comprehensive center for that million people, and not just like criteria of qualities of the center itself.
Yeah, exactly. But it's you can have a different view on that. I think but there are differences between the EU member states. And some of the differences we can clearly see between the East and West. Of course, it could be regarding also the quality of the cancer care. Fortunately, it's not the case of the Czech Republic. So the accreditation criteria must be nationally done, of course. But there also must be some criteria which will define what is the comprehensive cancer center on the European level. The most important thing is really that each country has to have at least one, because otherwise you can't make any network in the wide Europe, pan-European network of these comprehensive cancer centers. And there are some countries which have a population, for example, below 5 million. So, and we know that there is a recommendation to build one comprehensive cancer center for 5 to 10 million of inhabitants. But the main, and of course, these centers must be connecting together not only through the network, but also there has to be a members of the European reference network. There has to be also connected to the infrastructures, like in Czech Republic, all the comprehensive cancer centers are connected to the ECRIN infrastructure, the Czech national node of the ECRIN, which is really helping us to conduct a clinical trial, especially the multicentric investigator-initiated clinical trials. And it's really facilitate and speed up the research. And some of the centers are also a member of the European reference network, and then the connection works very well. Yeah.
One word maybe in Sweden also with you, Madeleine, if you're connecting with us, because I know there is implementation research is a major issue also in Sweden. You have a lot of research and research in cancer, but you have this issue about clinical research, which is a challenge. I mean, you do a lot of research, but when it has to go to clinical stage, sometimes there's a bit of a gap in between what's research at first and what comes to the ground. How much of there's an issue about growing implementation research, and how do you think this can be done?
No, like you say, clinical research and thereby implementation is a challenge in Sweden. And let me just describe to you very quickly so that the Swedish healthcare system is basically divided into 21 independent regions that each have their own primary responsibility for health and medical care. So the Swedish healthcare system in that sense is fragmented with a low degree of national governance and coordination. And also that research and care are too much seen as two separate parts competing for resources. So it's possible to prioritize care at the expense of research. And also what we have noted, and that has been especially true during the pandemic, is that clinical researchers, they report reduced incentives to conduct research. So for us, and probably for other countries as well, coordination, collaboration, and incentives must be enhanced for clinical research. And also what we have to remember then, that funding is greatly needed throughout the research continuum, from basic research, clinical trials, implementation in healthcare system, outcome research, health economics, and long-term follow-up. And at the Swedish Research Council, we fund basic research, we fund clinical research and clinical trials. And then for innovation and implementation, we have another government agency, Vinnova, but then we have these gaps. So I think now for the cancer mission and for the cancer fields and other fields as well, it's important, and also going back to what Joanna said, it's important that we structure our own national activity, and in particular from funders' point of view, national funders. I'm speaking of governmental funders, non-profit funders, and private funders. They must consolidate themselves now, and now we have a good opportunity to do so. And on this topic, I would also like to mention that the Swedish Research Council, we are responsible for 7 large national research programs, none in cancer so far, however, but for example, in antibiotic resistance and viruses and pandemics. And these research programs, they stretch over 10 years, and the idea behind these national research program is to gather different actors, funders and other actors with complementary knowledge. And they work together to manage major societal changes. So collaboration is a key issue.
En France, avec vous, Claire GIRY, on a aujourd'hui, dans le champ de la recherche intégrative en France, beaucoup de structures qui aident, les centres, bien évidemment, de lutte contre le cancer, les instituts de recherche qui collaborent avec un certain nombre aussi de CHU. Qu'est-ce que vous pouvez attendre de la mission cancer et des instances européennes pour donner un spectre plus large à ces champs de recherche intégrative qui permettent d'adresser plus de champs et aussi d'agir plus près de la réalité des difficultés du terrain?
Alors, je réponds en français ou en anglais?
Vous pouvez répondre en français.
Vous switchez, donc c'est d'accord. Comme vous changez de langue toujours, mais je parle dans ma langue, c'est tout à fait naturel et très bien, merci. Merci beaucoup à vous pour ça. Alors, effectivement, la dimension européenne pour la recherche sur le cancer, elle est particulièrement importante. Cette recherche, elle est aussi très riche dans différents pays, alors selon leur taille, etc. Mais il se trouve qu'en France, on a une recherche sur le cancer qui est très structurée, très organisée par notamment notre plan cancer et la stratégie décennale qui est à l'œuvre aujourd'hui, par le rôle que l'INCa a joué, par le rôle que l'INSERM a joué aussi en structurant la communauté plutôt sur les aspects recherche amont. Et finalement, ce qu'on attendrait au niveau européen aujourd'hui et ce que sera la prochaine étape avec des acteurs, vous l'avez dit, qui sont divers, qui sont importants, de la recherche amont, de la recherche clinique, vraiment des acteurs dans les hôpitaux, et puis des acteurs et c'est une grande force dans le domaine du cancer, qui arrivent à avoir vraiment de la recherche au pied du malade et non pas un continuum, comme on le décrit parfois, de la recherche amont aux cliniques, mais quelque chose d'elliptique, de cyclique, qui fait que on peut aussi partir du patient pour résoudre et éclairer des questions de recherche fondamentale et revenir au patient et avoir ainsi des cercles vertueux et progresser dans la connaissance de ce point de vue-là. Donc, bien sûr, dans les propositions de traitement, de diagnostic, de prise en charge au sens plus large des malades. Une étape que l'on souhaite porter aujourd'hui, qui va au-delà, c'est finalement la mise en œuvre aussi des propositions qui ont été faites dans le cadre de la mission cancer. Donc il s'agit de commencer à les mettre en œuvre, d'élaborer sur cette base. Et en particulier, on a commencé à construire une plateforme dédiée à la recherche au cancer qui s'appelle uncan.eu. Donc c'est l'INSERM en France qui a coordonné l'écriture d'une proposition d'une action coordonnée, d'une action de support, en fait, soumise à Horizon Europe à l'automne dernier. Et je dois dire que le projet a apporté beaucoup d'enthousiasme d'une vingtaine de pays et d'acteurs de ces pays qui ont vraiment eu envie d'y participer. Et ce consortium a été sélectionné très récemment et sera financé pour démarrer par 3 millions d'euros pour préparer le partenariat et pour préparer une plus grande ampleur de ce partenariat. Donc c'est un début, c'est le début d'un institut virtuel, donc localisé partout en Europe, mais qui permet vraiment d'être ambitieux dans la coordination, dans l'innovation, tout en étant ciblé sur un certain nombre de sujets bien définis, avec des axes de recherche sur la prévention, sur le diagnostic précoce, sur la résistance thérapeutique, toutes les questions que nous avons évoquées tout à l'heure, sur les questions biologiques qui sous-tendent les cancers qui peuvent être dépendantes de l'âge, dépendantes du sexe ou du genre, et puis les questions de survie après un cancer, enfin les questions de qualité de vie ou d'effets de long terme qui sont également à prendre en compte. Donc ça, je crois que c'est une nouvelle valeur ajoutée qu'on pourra avoir par cette approche européenne et par ce projet, qui est importante parce qu'elle est ancrée sur le terrain et c'est bien ce qu'il faut, je pense, dans cette recherche avec ce lien avec le clinique, mais en captant toute la valeur ajoutée des différentes approches scientifiques possibles parmi tout ce qu'on peut capter et pour enrichir cette recherche sur le cancer et la rendre de plus en plus forte et pertinente, il y a aussi la question de favoriser les données au sein de ce consortium et au-delà pour qu'on bénéficie au maximum de l'approche européenne. Elle permet de voir plus de patients, d'avoir une surface d'analyse plus large. C'est particulièrement précieux sur les cancers rares pour lesquels un très petit nombre de patients dans un pays donné ne permet pas d'accumuler tellement de connaissances alors que l'échelle européenne peut apporter ce regard pertinent. Donc l'idée c'est aussi de partager ces connaissances, ces données, de construire finalement un hub de données européennes du cancer qui soit vraiment utile à tous et qui permette d'aller plus loin dans la réponse à tous ces challenges que nous présentent ces maladies.
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais qu'on passe à l'autre grand aspect qui est revenu dans beaucoup des propositions de la matinée, c'est les moyens qu'on donne à cette recherche. Alors les moyens financiers, bien évidemment, mais aussi les moyens en termes de données, tout simplement, pour conduire et mener à bien ces recherches. Les data, c'est un sujet qui est beaucoup revenu hier, qui est beaucoup revenu ce matin aussi. Joanna, how confirmation will address this data issue. We saw this morning and yesterday that there might be simple decisions, like decided to have an obligation for every research project in Europe to share data at the beginning of the project, not at the end, just the data I want to check, but this is a pre-crawl actually. This might be decided quickly. Another thing is how you're going to build this data policy on research. You're going to be having a European data hub. There's going to be a digital European center with data. There's going to be the image center also as data. It means there's a lot of things coming. Isn't there a risk of too many things, too many data centers, and not very connected, the one with the other ones? How are you going to deal with this and offer a clear vision of data sharing to the researchers? With the mic.
I always forget. Okay, Europe has always been built in small and decisive steps. Okay, so.
But steps.
Yes, but they are steps forward and not backwards. So we should not forget that this is an area, and we're talking about the health area in particular, where each member state, you know, very legitimately, they did their own thing. Everybody did their own thing. And of course, at the national level, and this is exactly how it has always been organized. And it will remain like this, but I think COVID has brought a big push towards us appreciating the importance of sharing data, of organizing our findings, of sharing research results, of being quick in finding European solutions. And I think Europe has given a very important message here. So in a way, this is one of the good things of COVID. I mean, there are others as well. There are a lot of bad things too. But this is a good thing, and I think from the European perspective, we had to reflect upon actually using this experience. Once that this happened at the same time that the mission concept was baked, nearly fully baked, but then we were also thinking of, okay, what's the value added? And one of the value added is exactly this, of actually creating an incentive, creating a database, creating a central shall we say, conglomeration center for data and for clinical trials, which has just gone live. I'm sure that John spoke about it a couple of days ago, thanks to the European Beating Cancer Plan, where researchers and patients have the incentive and the platform available there to share the results of their research, their observations, but also patients to actually share their profiles together with professionals. So that there is a European center for that. Of course, this sounds very naive, maybe in 2022, for a Europe that's quite far advanced on the global stage, let's face it, in terms of, you know, how much money has gone into cancer research, treatment, prevention, diagnosis, lab work, etc., trials. And also, let's face it, some of the world's brightest brains in terms of solutions have come from Europe. But, you know, as I said, Europe has always been built in small and decisive steps. And I think based also on, you know, a very sound and recent experience that we can all relate to on an individual basis. So just to mention two examples that the Mission on Cancer supports, several key actions that are favoring open access to data and also supporting future clinical trials. There's the uncan.eu, of which you have already spoken highly, and this is actually really creating the hub, if you like, for high quality data to be accessed in general, both, as I said, for researchers and for patients, and also the clinical trials, which has gone live a couple of days back. One thing I think that I should emphasize here is that all this is not just for the sake of data and for the sake of, you know, having one European project more, which sounds good. I think at the end of the day, if we're thinking in terms of how attractive is Europe for investors to want to invest further and to believe in Europe as being a leader, a global leader, and the reference point on cancer and how it is, first of all, prevented and diagnosed, then I think we have much more of a credibility profile if we actually, keep not only build these steps in a decisive and serious way, but also keep building and evolving in this direction.
Marek, for a country like Czech Republic, what are the expectations you have about the increasing data sharing policies? What do you expect? What do you wish for? And what could the Czech presidency do about it?
In the Czech Republic, inside these comprehensive cancer centers, we can share the data, clinical data and research data, but mostly on the retrospective manner. So, and I think this is the biggest problem which was already issued here. We really need to share the data on clinical data in real time. It will also facilitate the clinical research, for example, the enrollment of the cancer patients to clinical trials. So at this time, it's a real main barrier in the Czech Republic, and I'm pretty sure it must be solved on the European level, as was mentioned already. And there are some ongoing projects like Gaia-X, and for example, we participate in some other commercial project, which is DigiCore, which is led by the French and Italian cancer centers, and it's about how to not only collect but share and analyze the data from the real-world evidence practice. And there was a mention in UNCAN, which was announced a few days ago. We are a part of the project as associate members, and it's led by the Gustav Rossi Institute. So also it will be the way how we can share this information and to prepare the country to be able to share this data. During the Czech presidency, the main expert meeting will be in July in Brno, and there will be few topics which will deal with that issue. I think one of them will be about the cancer registries, about the European health data space, and all these new regulations come here. And also there will be another topic which will be focused on the comprehensive cancer centers. So it's still ongoing, the preparation, but for sure it will be mentioned during our Czech presidency.
Madeleine, in Sweden, back to you. You have also a long history with National Register and with the translation of this National Register into data that might be used by the researchers. How sharing of data still is an issue and a problem for you researchers in Sweden, and how can the European initiative solve in a way this data sharing situation?
And that is sort of the $1 million question somehow, but
let's say
Sweden,
2 millions.
Yeah, even more. But yeah, in Sweden it is a problem because it's a problem at the national level, but also at the regional level, because each region would have their own data management system to a large
and on register and on the register also.
Yeah, and on the registers also, and also there's the regions may not even access primary care registers, so it is a difficult hurdle. But I agree with Joanna somehow that we must learn from the pandemic, when it actually was possible to share data. For example, the creation of the European COVID-19 data portal. But again, we still have to remember that within clinical research, the problem is, sensitive data, personal data, and patient data that maybe cannot be made openly available, to whatever legal and ethical aspects. But one problem also is that the legal matters are interpreted different between, of course, different nations and like in Sweden, also within different regions. But I would also like to mention the European Open Science Cloud and the establishment of EOS, which the Swedish Research Council is involved in. And I think also the previous speaker mentioned European health data space, which I think will also be very important for the development of data sharing in Europe.
Claire, pour revenir à la France, on a aujourd'hui, alors c'est de mon point de vue, qui est un point de vue certainement naïf et innocent, l'impression qu'on a un Health Data Center Hub qui se crée en France, on a beaucoup d'espaces, d'entrepôts de données qui sont en train de se créer pour le bénéfice des chercheurs. On voit bien se créer l'Européenne Digital Center, on voit bien se créer le UCAN Hub. À un moment, est-ce que sous la présidence française, il n'y a pas aussi besoin de créer une politique de partage de ces données, au-delà de simplement de créer tous ces organes-là, mais qui puisse instaurer des principes forts et communs de partage de données, comme c'était dit hier, le fait par exemple d'obliger à ce que l'ensemble des données soient partagées sur l'ensemble des projets financés par l'Europe?
Si, tout à fait, je crois que vous avez raison et je vais rebondir aussi sur ce que vous disiez tout à l'heure. Est-ce qu'on n'a pas trop de données? D'abord, je crois qu'on n'a jamais trop de données et que la vraie question qui se pose, c'est aussi celle que vous soulevez, c'est pas la quantité des données, c'est l'accès à ces données, dans quelles conditions quand il s'agit de données de santé, et l'organisation, le partage, toute organisation, tous les principes qu'il y a autour de ces données. Ça, c'est vraiment clé. Dans le domaine du cancer, on est assez en avance sur ces sujets parce que finalement, c'est un domaine qui s'est structuré et pour lequel on peut commencer à avoir des approches d'intelligence artificielle. Et c'est dans ce sens-là que je disais, on n'a jamais trop de données, puisque pour avoir ces approches, il faut vraiment des masses de données très importantes. Et dans ce domaine du cancer, la valeur ajoutée des données pour la recherche, elle est vraiment clé. On a un projet qui s'organise en France aussi, qui s'appelle France Médecine Génomique, autour du diagnostic génétique des cancers, des tumeurs elles-mêmes et des tissus des patients. Et on touche tout à fait cette question au-delà de... On voit bien la valeur ajoutée que ça peut avoir pour la recherche, pour la clinique, mais cette question du partage des données, de la circulation de ces données, de la façon dont elles sont... construites, dont les chercheurs qui y travaillent les produisent et s'y impliquent fortement et comment on peut lever les freins finalement à toute l'ouverture autour de ces données, elle est vraiment clé. Je crois qu'il y a un projet qui a dû être présenté, me semble-t-il, hier aussi par M. Bousquet sur une nouvelle initiative qui s'appelle FIAC, qui permet de faire finalement communiquer l'INCA, des partenaires industriels pour fédérer des jeux de données, les exploiter.
J'entends bien ça, mais est-ce qu'il y a dans un des membres du trio quelque chose qui revient depuis hier, le fait que dans un de ces temps-là, on puisse essayer d'avoir, sinon de repenser, tout du moins de travailler à une intégration différente du RGPD. Parce que c'est pas que, en effet, toutes ces approches de données, mais c'est que derrière, on a une problématique qui revient récurrente de tout ceci a une limite, c'est le cadre d'utilisation qu'on peut faire aujourd'hui avec le RGPD. Alors certains disent il est bien mais on l'utilise mal, d'autres disent il est mal et il faut le changer. Peu importe, il y a quelque chose à avancer par rapport à ça. Et donc en effet, pas plus de données, mais en effet le cadre. Et ce cadre, il est déjà existant, c'est le RGPD.
Ce cadre, il existe, c'est le RGPD. On est sur ces sujets dans des confrontations entre la liberté et l'ouverture des données et les restrictions et la protection quand on parle de santé. Donc je crois que la dualité, elle est là et la difficulté, elle est là. Donc oui, c'est des sujets sur lesquels on doit avancer forcément au niveau européen parce que la réglementation, elle est portée à l'échelle européenne. Et l'autre façade de ce sujet qui est vraiment clé pour la recherche, c'est celui de la confiance des patients, parce que les données, c'est des données souvent issues pas seulement, mais issues d'essais cliniques, et que dans cette équation, la confiance des patients, elle est clé, parce que si on la perd, ou si on l'altère, on perd tout finalement. Donc oui, bien sûr, cette question, elle est politique et technique et complexe, mais elle doit être posée dans cette dimension européenne complètement.
Question, il nous reste 10 minutes pour prendre des questions et de la salle et de l'auditoire connecté à nos invités. S'il vous reste l'énergie et l'inspiration de quelques questions sur ces enjeux de recherche conséquents et essentiels dans la salle, n'hésitez pas. Oui, madame, le micro va venir à vous. Il faut que vous puissiez vous présenter avant. Vous posez la question. In English is possible, in French is possible too.
This is always dangerous. Angelique DRAKE, professor in work and health at Maastricht University in the Netherlands. I talked this morning on cancer and employment, and I was listening to sharing the data. Excellent discussion, I think. And I was also thinking, about my wish that work as an outcome would be incorporated in such data sets. And I do not mean only whether people are working or not, but working status also as an indicator of poverty. We are talking about inequity. We're talking about long-term outcomes. Do people end up, do they lose their permanent jobs? Do they end up in partial employment, financial insecurities, or in some type of disability pension arrangement, or with nothing? That's that might be that's the long-term outcome of those in working age confronted with the diagnosis of cancer. So I thought my question is directed at Ms. WEIDERPASS best, but if others think that they can address this, that's also, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Normalement, ça marche, voilà.
Thank you for this question. The sort of databases you are wishing for, they already exist. And I give the example of Sweden, where we have a database which is called LISA, L-I-S-A, where we have all this information, and we were, until some time ago, perfectly able to link it to the cancer registry, to the mortality registry, and to several other registries, including the natality registry, to know, for example, in terms of women's cancer, if that woman had, after the cancer diagnosis, a child or not, and even to follow up the success of that child, for instance, in getting employment, him or herself. GDPR has certainly made the life of researchers much more difficult. So the process of obtaining the approval to be able to link such data is much longer, much more cumbersome, and sometimes it became totally impossible. So I think GDPR is an interesting concept, but it's a raw diamond, and at this moment, the raw diamond is inside the shoe of the researchers, because it's making life a misery in many senses. And I speak not only for myself, but on behalf, I think, of many people that work with register linkage studies. And this includes the whole community that works with cancer registries. So we collate cancer registry information globally at the International Agency for Research on Cancer. As per today, we are not receiving data for Scandinavia for the past 2 years or so because of GDPR. So even though we are GDPR compliant, since we are an international organization linked to the United Nations, we are not submitted to national or European laws, we are not able to receive the data. So there are major challenges. And again, I'm quite hopeful that the Commission and the deputies will take this very seriously and not block research because of the GDPR.
Joanna, you will have to knock on many doors to change that, you know, still ongoing, but many more doors to knock to, and to convince the other DGs to make the move. Oh, yes, it's going to be working.
Yeah?
Speak, yes.
Oh, my point was to collect it not only in the Nordic countries where you have already the registers, I know that, but in whole Europe. So we can, because we have now this estimation of 30% or 1/3 losing their job after the cancer diagnosis, but this is an estimation made on, well, not incomplete data. Countries are not represented, and I think for the long-term consequences, it's so important that all the countries are represented. Apart from this issue regarding the GDPR, so maybe Eurofound has in their data collection among the working population has to include a cancer diagnosis. I don't know, but somewhere the link has to be made. That was my, yeah.
What can I say? Of course, this is the clash of the titans. We're talking about the privacy laws, which all of us are very sensitive to. And GDPR was triggered and was driven with that in mind. And this is why you know, especially in the age we are living, you know, with data being such a commercial, shall we say, enabler for many, many, many startups and companies and technology companies. So that is an argument in itself. But yes, of course, one has to acknowledge that this needs to be somehow more equilibrated or calibrated to accommodate the needs of researchers, especially if there are consents that are the available consents obtained, especially by the patients. Let's not forget also that the inequalities register is existing under the cancer plan, has been established at European level. So I would say, again, going back to my argument of Europe has been built in small but decisive steps. This could be a first step towards making that, shall we say, driving that negotiation.
Some questions from the internet are sublining the fact that if you collect data from patients in a digital center or other initiative, they have to benefit. If they won't benefit, they won't give the data, and that's quite natural. How they could benefit from this initiative of giving the data at these different type and moments?
Well, probably the researchers can answer that question even more, because they can go into the granularity of why sharing data can be so beneficial, first for the science and the solutions and the innovations, including social innovations in this case, by the way, which is deeply rooted in both the mission and the Europe Beating Cancer Plan, the social innovation side, not only the clinical treatment and cure and prevention, etc. We're talking about quality of life, don't forget, also. It's one of the areas of the objectives of the mission. But of course, I mean, if there is more sharing of data, you are in a better position, even as a cancer patient or ex-cancer patient, to get maybe, you know, even recommendations from the professional. If the database links up the professions and the carers, the caring profession, and the doctors or the researchers who are involved in cancer treatment with the patients, can get a benefit from that. Plus, I would say that this is not to exclude that the cancer patient, even if you have been a cancer patient, there could also be a possibility that you will be again. It could also lead to, you know, tweaks in policy making that have actually more beneficial social benefit system during the time that you are a cancer patient. It could lead to that, both at a national level, but also at European level. So, of course, there could be, you know, short-term, but also medium to long-term benefits.
Another short question and short answer. We have 1 minute left. It's for you, Joanna, still. How smaller countries shall be more present in the research program with the cancer mission? This is something that, because the research program are mostly going to the big countries, you know. Is there a chance with the cancer mission, maybe you or Elisabete, that smaller countries get more program financed?
Oh, yeah, financing, yes, I think there is financing, but
selected and financed.
So I think the mission, we are entering now a second wave where new board members will be incorporated. And I know as a fact that there are many people putting forward their time and their willingness to participate. And so I'm sure the diversity will be large and it will be very inclusive. So I'm convinced about that. Moreover, we have stakeholder groups which are broad, which are comprehensive, and which are very inclusive. And the stakeholders groups can also have a very active role in the mission. We will also have different conferences, and my colleague Christine Schomian is working in an event that will take place on the 21st of March in this very room, which is including patient representatives and the public in general. So there are many ways to be included and so it's a very inclusive program, I would say. In terms of financial support, I mean, applying for European grants has become easier. I mean, the bureaucracy is lower than it was in previous programs. The way to fill in forms is much more straightforward. So progress is, as my colleague, Dr. Drake just said, it's very important progresses, small steps, but it's getting easier. I think the matching between researchers that have less experience in applying with researchers that have more experience in applying is really what makes a difference. So that increases the probability of success rather dramatically.
Thank you. Yes, just
maybe one comment on that. I completely agree, especially the first option which was mentioned. It's very important, especially for the countries from the Central and Eastern Europe, how they can be more involved in this project. And one comment on the data sharing. I think one of the most benefit is continuity of care, and the patients understand it.
Okay, thanks a lot. This is a good end word for this roundtable and this moment we spent together. Thanks a lot. We can applaud our guest present and the guest present at distance too. And I let you go back to the audience, and thanks a lot each of you for your participation of the day.